So media queries are old school. We've had them since forever. You've been using them since day one. When you do a print style sheet, that is a media query. You are saying, when the media is print, do it this way. So this is what you were using. You were using link with a media print. Interestingly, or what most people don't know, is this is not necessary anymore. HTML5 says there are no other types of style sheets other than CSS. So why are you telling me that it's CSS? I know it's CSS. If you use something else, then tell me what you're using. But in the meantime, I will believe that everything is CSS that has a rel style sheet unless you tell me otherwise. So that was one way of doing it, with a link and saying media screen or media print or media any of these, all oral, handheld, braille, emboss, print, projection, screen, TTY, and TV. But TV actually gets screen, as does everything else. So these were never really, print worked, braille works, but TV and handheld were never really a good idea. So then we have a media screen. This is the other way of doing it. So this is actually linking a completely different style sheet. And this is within your style sheet saying, when you have a media print, make the paragraphs red. And this is where you would put that print style sheet, like that print that I showed you earlier, where you print the attribute. If it's an external link, you would put that in here, right? That's a good place for it. Another thing I do in media print is I do header and footer display none, because it's, I have a blog. I want people to have the content. I don't want them to have my standardista header. There's no reason for them to have the nav from the left-hand side. If you guys are working for a business and you print it, they probably want you to have the header. I'm not marketing anything. Like save a tree. So that's why I do it that way. But print also goes to PDFs. When people print a PDF, it actually is the print style sheet as well. Okay, so these were our choices. We had these 10, and they had these different ways of importing them. Link, using style with import, using @import, and using @media. And then in your XML style sheet, doing that declaration as well. But this is what you probably care about, which is what people, when they say media queries and responsive web design, this is generally what they're talking about, which is media screen and a min width of 320 and a max width of 480. So any device that is between and including 320 to 480 pixels, use my smartphone CSS. So I could do it in a link, and I could also do it as an @media call within my CSS. So I can still just have one style sheet and just do little one-offs for different device sizes, or even orientations. And what are our options? We have width, height, device height, aspect ratio, device aspect ratio, and all of these has min and max, right? And for all of these, you should be using min and max. You shouldn't be actually using width. Because if you do width 320, you are matching one size cell phone, and that is it. You're not matching the 325, the 330, the 315, and the 310. You're only matching the 320. So do a min, and don't do the min of 320 just because it's the iPhone. What you do when you want to figure out what size you should do is, come on. It doesn't want to exit. But you take the bottom corner, you move it in. When your page starts looking like crap, you're like, that's a good breakpoint. That's where your breakpoint should be, where your design needs it, not because some device is a particular size. Does that make sense to people? And that is my opinion. It's not a religion. But I think you'll think that makes sense too. So your PM is probably going to tell you 320. That's what you should do. And they probably won't even notice if you say, you know what, I'm going to bring it down to 290 and break it at 540. As long as I include their iPad in there, they're happy, they won't know the difference. But take your design, when it breaks, when it starts looking bad, that's when you should have a breakpoint, rather than just because of some device. Then we have portrait and landscape. And portrait is when it's wider than it is tall. Landscape is, no, that's landscape. Portrait is when it's taller than it is wide. Then we have key terms. We have only, and, not, and comma. And I'm just going to cover the comma because the other three are self-evident. But what this line reads is, if you have a print, if the media is print, or if it's screen and min width. So this comma means this is a separate declaration than this. Does that make sense? Okay. Because the keyword and means it has to be screen and orientation portrait. But when you have it doesn't mean like anything that's screen and anything that's orientation. This is what you want to use when you're targeting two different devices or two different, media queries. So then there's device capability and detection. So you can actually use CSS to figure out you can base your CSS based on the device and the browser capabilities. So the first one says min device pixel ratio 2. So that would be for the iPhone or the high retina stuff. So you might want to serve them larger images. And then you have what is the browser capable of. And there's only 3 possible values that can go in here. There's a prefixed 3D transform, prefixed animation, and prefixed transition. And I'll cover this in a second, but let me go on to the prefixing thing here. So here we have, this is WebKit. So does it support WebKit animation? Yes, it does, so it's green. Does it support animation? No, it does not. Does it support display? There's only 3 values that can go in here. So it's only going to show green for 3 things, and because it does support all of them. Transform 3D, I believe it is. I'm going to cheat and look back at the previous thing because I don't remember what it is. Oh, it's the dash is what I'm missing. So transform dash 3D and transition. So those are the only 3 that go in there. But this was a brilliant idea, right? Except for you couldn't put display, does it support display in there? Because browsers that don't support these media queries do support display, right? So only the browsers that support any form of transition, 3D transforms, or animation support this way of doing a media query. But we're going to have things like Flexbox, right? We're coming down with Flexbox. So we're going to have display : box flex, or whatever the value is going to be. I don't know. It's already set, so there is. So, so we're going to have something, and it's called @supports. And if we go in here, and we look down at the way bottom, and then we lose where we are, and we go back, and then we reload the page because we lost it, and then it doesn't come in because my life is miserable, and I'm probably offline. Oh, come on. Seriously? Okay. There we go. Okay, so back in here. This is what's coming down, and I don't think I could make it smaller if I tried. It says @supports. So browsers already all support @media, so they couldn't put things like display table cell. You could put media screen and display table cell in there because you'd be missing all the ones that actually do support table cell because they don't support that within the media query. So to make it backwards compatible, they actually have, and you can see it's not supported yet because it's not written down here, because it says class supports property value. And there I'm saying if it supports that, do it. So it says supports display table cell and display list item. So display table cell and display list item, every single browser supports those, right? But we're going to need new values like Flexbox. So why would we, this is going to be, so when we use Flexbox, we're not going to give Flexbox to we're not going to say everyone try to implement this. We're going to say if you support Flexbox and then put the Flexbox declarations in there. So it's basically a media query of what the browser supports. So that's coming down the pipe. And maybe like, I haven't looked this up in a few weeks, so maybe that is supported. I don't know if the syntax is like this. Maybe it's coming, maybe it's already here and I don't know it yet. It was not here a month ago.